Welcome to Women's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's episode, we'll take you from bean to brew as we discuss the power couple known as coffee and beer. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori,
Hello.
and we're two beer loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. I think this might be like your favorite episode ever.
It is, and I actually wrote "come percolate" with us. But you didn't read that, so I put it in bold. I put it in bold for you.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
That's all right.
I don't read that bit because if I read it, I do it wrong.
That's all right, but I thought I'd just throw that in and see if you noticed
nice.
it, and I bolded it and everything, and sure you didn't even notice it.
No,
I love coffee. I love beer. Literally, I could smell coffee in the kitchen as I went to go grab my beers because we make iced coffee. So we brew our coffee sort of the night before or whenever, and then put it in the fridge, and it stays in the fridge, and we just drink from that. And I was like, oh, it smells like coffee, and I'm gonna go talk about coffee. So yeah, I'm excited. I am excited. So
amazing. So we've been talking about this one for a little while, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we kind of knew we wanted to do one, and then I think like we sort of knew we wanted to talk about coffee at some point. And then one of the beers that we're going to have, which is the Venti's 20, which is the coffee Belgian double it's a collaboration of Phantom Brewing and Brew. I had that when I was out, and I was like, oh, this is really, really interesting, really good. And I just thought it'd be quite interesting to try some other coffee based ones that maybe aren't so straightforward as like what you normally get when you think like coffee beer. Obviously we have some that we're gonna drink that are a bit more what you think of when you think of coffee and beer, but hopefully some of the ones that we have will at least be a bit like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, I've got some fun facts. I've got lots of coffee chat. It's going to be very coffee heavy, so if you don't like coffee, you're probably not going to have a good time. But I've got lots of coffee chat, and then I'll hand it over to you once we've had the coffee chat. You can talk us through the beer coffee chat, and then I've got some interesting stories to end on. So I'm excited. Yeah, and I just want to start off by saying as well, I wanted to use, so obviously we're approaching Women's History Month, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to call out, like, I know that there's an independent coffee company called Girls Who Grind. I've ordered their coffee before. I think they've collaborated with some breweries for coffee beer. I can't remember off the top of my head which brewery it was. I'm trying to remember and I can't think of it, but I know that's how they first came to my attention, was something that had to do with a collaboration there. And they've also collaborated with a chocolate company called Heist, and when I bought the coffee, I bought some of the peanut butter chocolate bar as well, and it was really, really good. So yeah, I don't, that's the only one I know of that's like super like go ladies. So I mean, if you've got any other recommendations that, you know, coffee company wise that have, you know, promote strong female identifying women that you want to share with us, DM us, email us,
let us know.
Do all that, because I couldn't go through this episode and not call them out, because they're really great, and you can read on their website about all that. And Jo, if you can like link them,
she'll put it in the show notes
for the people that love coffee, that don't just want coffee beer, you want actual coffee. That's check them out. They've got a good range of stuff there, and that's my recommendation. But I thought I would maybe start with a little bit of a fun fact before we crack our beer open, which is not so much a fun fact as much as, so scientists have estimated that coffee has been keeping us going since 800 AD, because I think they can date coffee back to the year 800 AD. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And International Coffee Day was the 1st of October, or is the 1st of October. That was it's since conception in 2015. So
that's not that long ago.
It's not that long ago, but you know what? We hit a point and we were like, coffee deserves a day.
Right.
Everything else gets a day. We just had pizza day. You get donut day.
Did, yeah.
You don't have the same appreciation for coffee. We need to have that. So since 2015, 1st of October has been International Coffee Day. And finally, the fun fact is The Guinness Book of World Records records the largest cup of coffee ever filled to be 3,487 gallons. And that was in 2012. It was like 9 feet tall, it says. 9-foot tall cup of coffee.
What's that in litres?
I don't know. I didn't convert that.
Not being American.
Hold on, let me try.
In real money.
Let me convert it for you.
Thank you.
That is, I love Google. Thank you, Google overlords. We appreciate your work. 15,852.22 litres.
That's a lot of coffee.
A lot of coffee. 9 foot tall. All you had to say to me was 9 foot tall coffee, and 9 foot tall coffee cup filled with coffee. So pretty great.
I mean, surely it would have gone cold by the time you get like halfway.
I like iced coffee, so I'm good with that.
Yeah, well, I feel like cold coffee's not like coffee that's gone cold is not the same as having iced coffee, is it?
It's funny that you say that, because the amount of times I've had to like explain to you, I was like, I feel like people, I can't say the entire UK, but there's been so many people that I've come across here where I say like, yeah, I prefer iced coffee. And they're just like, oh, cold coffee. Like, I hate when my coffee goes cold. And I have to explain to people, it's not the same as you making a cup of coffee, putting it on your desk, having a meeting, forgetting it's there, and then going back to it like an hour later and you're like, oh, it's cold now. That is not an iced coffee. And yeah, you should be ashamed if that is what you treat as an iced coffee, because it's not the same at all. So maybe that like 9 foot tall cup of coffee was like an iced coffee cup.
Oh, that would be fine. But then you've got to like insulate.
I need that for my Mondays.
So that like the ice cubes don't just completely melt and it's just watered down coffee, because then that's when you get to the bottom of your ice coffee. Yeah, when you get
to the smart move. No, the smart move is you make your ice cubes out of coffee, so when it melts, it's still just coffee. Life hack.
I bet the 9 foot coffee cup didn't have ice cubes made out of coffee.
I bet it was hot coffee, and I bet it was mango by the end of it. But the point is, it wasn't for drinking. I'm sure it wasn't for drinking. Or maybe it was like a really insulated cup. I don't know. I didn't see a photo. Okay. I didn't see a photo. So, but yeah.
I need answers. Come on.
I mean, if I Google it, let's see.
Oh God.
World's
going to be 5 days long.
Biggest coffee cup. Oh no, coffee. So if you're watching the video, you can see this is a big ass cup of coffee. Oh. So this is from 2010.
Gourmet gift basket.
I don't think this is the same one, but at the time, this was the biggest cup of coffee. 2010 gallons, 32,160 cups of coffee, I think that says. Oh. But again, that's from 2010, so I don't think that's the same one anyways. But it looks like hot coffee is the thing to beat. So,
yes.
Yeah. So,
anyway,
without further ado, let's crack our first beer open, and then we can get down to the nitty gritty of it.
I did a double brew day today, so I'm in need of an actual
yeah, that's true. You did. And today, like yesterday, felt like a Friday.
Yeah.
So today was like the most unbearable Friday because I was working, and I was like, yesterday felt like a Friday to me. So I'm ready for this.
It's beer time.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah. So we have chosen one of Siren's Project Barista beers. We thought we'd go for an interesting one. So we've grabbed Press to Zest, which is a lemon and coffee goes.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And with that set, so I've got the other beers here because I actually haven't opened them yet because I've been waiting to open them. So
I haven't drank them yet.
The Cafe Lungo, the Mucha Mocha, and what's the other one? The Extra Special Beans.
Oh yeah,
the hard lines Extra Special Beans is what it's called. And I've also got, which I'm going to use, my Project Barista glass. Because I got that, and as part of the pack you also got the tasting notes, and you've got the booklet, and it's got the history there, and basically like they've been doing their Project Barista since 2017. That is where they came up with Affogato. The first time they came up with Affogato, I believe, and that's the one that I
favorite beers ever.
Absolutely loved it. But yeah, so that was interesting, I thought. And so just a bit of the background on this, it's so they had like a whole day at the tap yard. I went to go pick it up before the event started, like literally first thing in the morning. I'm so happy I did, because I saw them like bussing people in this year as well, and I was like, I'm so glad that I'm leaving as the bus is arriving, because I wouldn't want to be stuck behind everybody trying to get my beers. But it was a whole big day, and hopefully next year I can maybe try to do it. They released coffee mugs as well, travel coffee mugs.
Oh.
And I would have bought one, except I've got so many travel coffee mugs. So I'm like, it's really difficult to justify coming home with another one, but we'll see. But yeah, this one that we're going to have, the Press to Zest, that was a collab with Klimpson and Sons.
Yep.
So they're based in Hackney. It uses Ethiopian coffee called the Estate. It's the part of Ethiopia that it's come from is, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, it's Sidamo. So it's south central part of the country. It was its own province until the Constitution of Ethiopia in 1995, and it's now divided amongst 3 different regions. So it's not its own sort of province anymore, it's split out amongst them. So the inspiration Siren have said they've taken to create this was Mazagran. I don't know what that is, and to be honest, I hadn't had a chance to look it up, but that's something. And an iced coffee lemonade. I had never had an iced coffee lemonade, but I had Evil Twin did a coffee-nade, which was I'm assuming a similar thing. Okay. I had that quite a while ago, and I thought, oh, this is not going to be good. I had it a few years back now. I was like, I don't think it's going to be good. It was actually a really interesting combination of flavors. So
does we're going to find out in a minute when we open this. Yeah. Do you think it's the acidity of the lemon, and of course there is acidity in coffee, that they kind of balance out quite nicely?
I don't know, because I don't think it was necessarily like the acidity in coffee. Like, I think it was just the roasted flavor that somehow, just like from what I remember of the coffee-nade, like the roasted flavor somehow just mixed really well with the lemonade. I don't know how. It doesn't sound like it would be good, but it's very good. So I'm interested to see how this will be, because this is a goes and the other one wasn't.
Yeah.
So it would just be interesting to see how that works. So but yeah, Siren picked this coffee because it has orange and bergamot notes.
Oh yeah.
So that's why they picked this. And the hop that they used was Simcoe, and obviously the adjuncts were coffee, lemon concentrate, and lemon zest. So let's crack it open and see what we think of it. I'll give you the little outline.
Yeah.
It's all in that the guide as well. So tasting notes for them all are there. Yeah, and I'm just really hoping that my sensors aren't fucked, because we recorded the other day. I, unbeknownst to me at the time, had COVID at that time. So I'm hoping, I don't think I lost any taste or smell, but we'll find out now if I'm getting things like wildly different from you.
This smells amazing.
Oh, I just dunked my nose in that. That was not great.
Like, I'm getting roasty beans and lemon, and I'm getting that bergamot in the back. Oh, it's lovely.
See, I'm wondering if because I still have a slightly stuffy nose, residual left over from COVID.
You're missing out. This is amazing.
So I can smell the lemon, but I can't make out like the roasty notes. But I think it's me more than it is anything else, because because I've just like, you know what, the cup's not the best. Good. My glass isn't the best one for smelling. So I was like, let me try from here. And I can get the lemon, but I'm struggling with the coffee elements of it. Is it more, so you're getting all of that.
Yeah.
Are you finding that the way the coffee's blended in, it's a more subtle coffee smell, or is it very distinctly?
No, the coffee, it's like coffee. And then you're getting the herbal of the bergamot and the lemon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just not helping me with the stuffy nose at the moment. But the lemon cuts through, which is good. Oh wow, that's really interesting.
That's so interesting.
That's really interesting, because like the first thing to hit, well, for me anyways, and again, I don't think my taste has gone. I think my taste is still good. The first thing that cuts in is like a sharp lemon. But then it very quickly goes to like coffee. And it's just really like, it's really bizarre, because it's not like anything I've
so there's like
had in that sense.
There's tart coffee, but it's not like often when you have coffee, like it's kind of thick and, roasty and dark. This is like a bright coffee.
like a blonde roast almost.
Yeah,
but
I often find with a blonde roast it's kind of dulled. This isn't dulled, like it is there, but it's much like it's like bright, fresh coffee, and then I'm getting like some orange, but it's quite dry. I've still got a little bit of coffee in the linger, but it's pretty dry and very drinkable. This is amazing.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if they've got anything else written on the back about it.
Goodness.
So I tried not to read sort of too much about it, but yeah, it's really unique, and I for me I find like the coffee is lingering, so it's like I said, it's very, for me it's very sharp lemon tart, and then very quickly coffee, and then like you said, it kind of goes into a bit of like orange, but then the linger is coffee.
Yeah,
but it's like you said, it's not your standard. I think what I'd say is it's not your standard roasty coffee, like you said, where I think sometimes when you have like a dark beer, it might not have coffee in it, but you're like, oh, roasty, like that. It doesn't land in that type of way.
Yeah.
Roasted, it is interesting.
I wouldn't describe it as roasted.
Roasted. No, it's not at all. No, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, while we sip on this, I thought I'd just quickly sort of give an overview of the top 5 countries in terms of production of coffee. So have you read the notes on what I've done at all?
No, because you told me not to.
Yeah, so I just wanted to check. Yeah, I told you not to read like all the paragraphs I wrote because I wanted you to be surprised, but I thought I'll ask anyways just to be safe. So basically I kind of cross-referenced a whole bunch of websites, including like Investopedia, Statista, WeForum, like all that. So I'm fairly convinced that these are accurate. Okay. But if anyone has something that's more verified that tells me it's wrong, obviously let me know. So name 5 countries that you think are like the top producing countries.
Guatemala, Brazil, Ethiopia.
Because say one of them might be a giveaway.
Yeah. Antigua. And I'm trying to think of places that I've heard of coffees.
Okay. From. These are interesting choices.
No, I give up. That's my 4.
Well, what's quite interesting as well is what I was reading said by the end of 2020, the top 10 biggest coffee producing nations held 87% of the commodities market share. Just out of the 10, that's super interesting. So I'm going to take you from the 5th down to the 1st biggest.
Okay.
And the sizing that I'm going to give is based on 60 kilo bags. Right. I think the stats are 2020 was when it was recorded, but it doesn't look like it's really changed. So number 5 is Ethiopia. Yeah. I feel like that is sort of a given. Yeah. We may or may not have a beer later that's from Ethiopia.
Colombia. I should have said Colombia.
It's too late now. Too late now. You already locked it in. So Ethiopia, so they're sizing a 7.3 million 60 kilo bags.
Right.
They've got 4.3% total market share.
Right.
Number 4, Indonesia. That's 12 million 60 kilo bags and 7.1% total market share. Number 3 is Colombia. There you go. You got that one. 14.3 million 60 kilo bags, 8.4% total market share. Yeah, I thought it'd be nice and I'd give that one back to you. Number 2, which you did not say at all, was Vietnam.
Oh, I didn't think about Vietnam, of course. Like when you say them, they're going to be obvious.
Yeah, exactly. 29 million 60 kilo bags, and that's 17.01% total market share. And then obviously, of course, number 1 is Brazil, which is 63.4 million 60 kilo bags, holding 37.4% market share. But that was quite.
I'm a big fan of coffee from Guatemala, just saying.
I don't know, like I'm sure I've probably had, I think I've definitely had Guatemala. I think I've had like Starbucks Guatemalan coffee, like the bags that you can get to go. I think I've like bought those ones.
I've had coffee in Guatemala, just saying.
All right, world traveler over there. I was gonna say, like,
and in Colombia. Colombian coffee. Yes, please.
Some of us haven't even been to those places. All right. Do they
Colombia's beautiful.
when you're there? Is the vibe like? Would you know? Obviously, they're big coffee producing places. Like, but when you're there, are they big coffee drinkers? Like, do they? Is there a lot promoting?
Colombia, definitely. I got Colombian coffee caramels. Nice. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Like, I love chocolate.
Like proper there's like
coffee chocolate would be
stuff for, there's touristy stuff around coffee. Guatemala as well.
Can you go to like the farms where they grow coffee? And
I don't know about that.
Probably. They probably do like tours of that.
Yeah, probably. I went to like the old city in Colombia. I didn't get very far in Guatemala. That was a show day.
Oh, well, okay. Fair. Well, Mrs. Worldwide over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I imagine that it's probably like super fresh from the source as well.
Yeah.
So that's probably quite good. So obviously I've just asked you if those countries are quite big in their coffee consumption as much as their production. But I also have a list of the top 5 biggest consumers. Again, I sort of had to look at multiple different websites because I don't think there was nothing black and white that I was like, this is the be all end all of references of, validation and all that. So, but I did cross-reference quite a few websites, again, including like World Population Review, and I went on How to Denmark, which cited the same list that I've got, and they cited the International Coffee Organization. So I was like, I'm going to take that. That's probably correct there.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you'll find any of these like interesting, something you didn't know. So I'll start with number 5 down to number 1, and this is all based on I believe it's per person, I think, is what this list is, like per drinker, like how much like an individual would consume on average a year.
Yeah.
So number 5 is the Netherlands. That's 8.4 kilos or 19 pounds for depending on where you're listening from. So I've got a fun fact about each of them, or an interesting fact about each of them, or something to say about each of them. So the Dutch were the first to introduce coffee to the West.
Okay.
Didn't know that. Thought that was a bit interesting. So number 4 is Denmark. That's 8.7 kilos on average and 19 pounds. So this one I thought was really interesting. 1 out of every 2 Danes prefer black coffee, and only 1 out of 6 never drink coffee.
Oh.
And a side note on that, black coffee only has 1 calorie. So it's not too bad for you. It's when you start adding like milk or cream or the sugars into it, or syrups or anything else, that's when it starts getting.
My friend used to add butter to it.
That's really weird. I think I had never heard about that before until literally this last time that we went to the US, and we were ordering coffees on an app, and it was like, here's the extra stuff that you can order or like add to your coffee, and they had butter, and they had some other stuff like that, like protein mix and stuff like that, and we were looking at it and we were like, butter, and we thought, I wonder if this is just like a typo or like an issue with the website where they always give you these additions. Like maybe this is obviously meant for like a bagel or something, but it's under the wrong thing. But apparently, so I mentioned it to a friend who she's a bit more into like fitness and stuff, and she had said to me, actually what it is it's like, I want to say a keto thing.
Yes, I think that's what it is.
It's a keto thing.
I
don't know much about it, but I was like, what? And then she's like, yeah, if you do keto, you just put butter in your coffee. And I was like,
it's weird.
I can't even imagine what it tastes like.
No,
I don't think I want to find out, to be honest, but yeah, that is a thing apparently. So yeah, number 3, we've got Iceland. So they consume about 9 kilos on average per person, like 20 pounds. So beer wasn't legal until 1987 in Iceland. Wasn't legal until 1987 according to what I've found online. And with wine being costly, coffee has been the longest, like most essential social drink. So they've got like a custom. I mean, I think it's probably similar everywhere. Like it's customary when your visitors come around, you offer them some coffee or hot drink or whatever.
Yeah.
So the Icelanders have a stock reply, which is obviously they say it in Icelandic. I couldn't pronounce it, so I'll just tell you what it means. They reply with 10 drops, and that's meant to just indicate that they want a small cup of coffee.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
I wasn't even going to try to say it in its natural language. I was like, no. So number 2 of the biggest ones is Norway. That's 9.9 kilos or 22 pounds. So Norwegians drink more than 3 cups of coffee per day on average, apparently.
Scandinavian countries are loving the coffee.
Absolutely, yeah. That's kind of what we found, really. That's what I found on that was, yeah.
Do you think it's because it's cold?
I don't know. I think part of it probably has to do with like certain areas as well, like other things might be expensive, and so that's the socializing versus alcohol or something like it is in Iceland. I wonder if it's like similar in Norway and Denmark and like those places, but I don't know. But yeah, number 1 is Finland with 12 kilos or 26 pounds. And I've got there that the average Finn drinks nearly 5 cups a day. And so basically they have 2 10-minute coffee breaks that are legally mandated for Finnish workers. So that's how much they love coffee.
Yeah.
2 mandated 10-minute coffee breaks for workers per day.
Don't even have legal tea breaks in the UK, and I'm a coffee drinker.
Well, I'm a coffee drinker.
I'm not a tea drinker, but you know, the Brits love their tea.
So interesting you say that, actually, because one of the facts to follow up with was I don't know where the UK sits on this list, because it was really hard to find like the more down the list you got, the harder it was to kind of find it and validate it.
They're not in
the
top 5.
I've got a fact for that as well, so don't worry. So with the UK, don't know where it sits on the survey, but there was a survey done between 2020 and 2021 where they surveyed 2,074 adults, which are between the ages of 18 and 64, and 63% both said that they consume coffee and tea regularly. So it was not that each individual said I have both, but it was 63% on both coffee and tea as what was consumed daily, regularly. Yeah. So it actually sounds like that stereotype of UK equals tea.
That wasn't a very big That wasn't a very big number of people that they asked, though.
No, but it does feel like
we're not on The Apprentice here. This isn't 50% of people because we asked 2 boys.
No, but I do think like that there is a growing number of people that drink coffee now. And I think like I still get people that I speak to in the US that like make jokes about like, tea this and tea that. Oh, we have tea. Will we go out and like have tea? And I'm like, that's not really a thing. No. So I think it's definitely a stereotype that should be broken, because I don't think it's a hard and fast rule that like everyone you meet is gonna drink tea. Like that's just not. They'll drink a hot beverage, I'm sure, but it's not a strictly tea thing anymore. So the US was number 25 of the biggest consumers on a per person basis.
That's quite far down.
Well, this one, it was number 25 based like I said, on the per person basis. I don't know if it's maybe they've got more people, so maybe if you're looking at it as a whole, it might shoot up compared to other countries that have like less people. I'm not really sure, but it does say the average person in the US consumes about 3 cups of coffee per day, and also that the Boston Tea Party is what helped popularize coffee in America, because obviously people would drink that in protest over drinking tea. So I've also seen that Dunkin' Donuts, which I've dragged you to before, and I complained that I was like, their coffee is not like, they do not offer nearly as much as what's offered in the US, but they've done a calculation in the US, at least at the time of when the article I read was written, and you can order coffee 25,000 different ways at Dunkin' Donuts in the US.
25,000 different.
25,000
You
different.
couldn't do that in Dunkin' Donuts in Sheffield.
You can do that at Dunkin' Donuts in the UK, like full stop. Like any of the Dunkin' Donuts I've gone to, you could probably order them at like maybe, because it's all different combinations. So it's like maybe I'm being generous, like 100 different ways to order a coffee. If you're like, I have it black, and then I have it just with sugar, and then I have it just with milk, and then all three. So yeah, it's 25,000 different ways.
Wow.
How insane is that?
That's a lot. That's a lot to learn if you're a Dunkin' Donuts employee.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think it's like it's like Starbucks. They'll come up to you and they'll be like, I want this coffee. And the standard, if you're just getting like an iced coffee or a hot coffee, they'll be like cream and sugar. And you're just like, yes. And you kind of specify if you want the syrup. But like cream and sugar is like the standard of what they'll expect that you probably want. Whether you get a flavoring or a specific combination of flavorings or Splenda or whatever else, that is totally... someone will ask for that. So I don't think they've got to remember all of it.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
And I've never really worked it out myself. When Americans say cream and sugar, is it actually cream? Like, is it like single cream, double cream going in there, or is it just milk?
So no, it's not milk. But I don't like. Is
it that half and half stuff?
So there is half and half, but half and half is half cream and half milk.
Right.
So it's like a thinner cream. It's thicker than milk.
Is it thicker than single
cream?
And
I think it's it's thinner than single cream, I think. Okay. I can't remember the last time I used it. I think it is more like a milky consistency, if I remember correctly, because I just used it like a few months ago.
Yeah.
But I think that's meant more calorie wise.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit better for you than full on cream. Obviously, cream's not great in that sense, but yeah, as to whether or not it's like, I never find it comparable to like single or double cream.
Yeah,
because I think it's thinner than it pours thinner than that. So
like, is it more like whole milk?
Bit thicker than that, maybe. Bit thicker than normal milk, but I think like thinner than single and double cream. Although I think you can use single cream over here if you wanted to, but like it's not really a direct comparison. And then like in the US you have all these like creamers, that's what it's called, dairy creamers, and you have like all the flavors. You can get like Girl Scout cookie ones, you can get peanut butter ones, Snickers ones, like any
the one
chocolate
thing
bars
that I really missed when I stopped working in the US was Coffee Mate.
You can get Coffee Mate over
flavors.
here.
No, but it's not.
It's not the same. So you get like just powdered coffee milk over here.
But I mean, I used to get the powdered Coffee Mate in America as well, because I could get that on the ship. But there were so many different flavors. I would stock up on the pumpkin spice one. Yeah. I used the French vanilla one. I came over here. I actually emailed Coffee Mate and was like, "Why don't you sell them over here? Why can't I get flavored coffee creamer from you over here? Like, you distribute over here, like, what?" And they were like, there's just not there's no call for it in the UK. And I'm like, sell it to me.
Yeah, there's just no market for it over here. Really people would turn their nose up on it. I did bring back non-dairy creamers from Coffee Mate that were like single, they're like single little
like little pots
things, little pots, and they are French vanilla ones, I think.
French vanilla.
I'll bring you two when I see you next. I'll bring you a few of them because
thanks.
Yes. I tend to do, and I'm making
keep my American Anglo lifestyle going.
Yeah, I tend to pour like one of those in. I had to go crazy to find them in the US, because like those ones, because all of them tend to be dairy, not non-dairy, and I needed something that was going to be able to travel, and I didn't want powder and all that. So I found them, and thankfully it was like flavored. It wasn't just plain. But I tend to like hit one of those, and then I top it up with milk. So I kind of like create my own little half and half situation. But yeah, it's good. But back to the coffee. So what I'll say before we kind of move on to the next beer. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, we always tangent. But before we get on to the sort of process of making coffee, because I think that's probably important to know before we talk about how it's used in beer.
Okay.
But there are 5. Well, depends on who you ask, because I think some people tell you there's 4 elements to tasting coffee, or to the coffee tastes. Some people say there's 5. I think 5 tends to be the majority. Some people don't recognize the last one.
Okay.
So those are, I'll give you all 5 just because. So it's aroma, flavor, acidity, body, and then the contested one is aftertaste.
Oh.
So yeah.
So not vastly different from beer tasting.
No, not miles
just
away.
Slightly different categories.
Yeah, like I think we would talk about acidity. Like a lot of, I feel like
acidity and body would go in mouthfeel altogether.
But I do think that. But I think that that's kind of like we file that all under the category of flavor or taste, like full stop. It would be like under taste.
So, if you're going to do it from a like BJCP style of judging, flavor is separate from mouthfeel.
Yeah.
And mouthfeel includes acidity, carbonation, body, all of that comes under
so
that.
What I meant was not flavor, but what I meant was like when people talk taste, like overall, people go taste, and that will all go under that branch.
So taste and mouthfeel go together to make flavor, because flavor is actually a combination of lots of different things, including aroma. Because like, you know, we have the flavor of strawberries, but strawberry isn't actually a taste. It's a combination of like aromas and mouthfeel and blah blah blah.
Yeah, but I've also put on here, I don't know if there's some way for you to like attach this somewhere, maybe not, I don't know, but there is like, I found a nice, just like you have your the beer tasting notes and wheel, I found a coffee taster's flavor wheel.
Oh, that's exciting.
So it's quite interesting because it had everything. It has like more floral, so yeah, it covers floral, it covers berries, dried fruit, other fruits, citrus fruit, sour. There's an alcohol fermented taste to it. That's covered under the sour fermented section, which I thought was interesting. I guess the main ones are, you've got floral, fruity, sour / fermented, green / vegetative. Then there's an other section. Then you have roasted, spices, nutty / cocoa, and sweet. And then it branches out from there. And it's actually quite a nice, helpful picture if you look at it on the second tab of our thing. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Really user friendly, really sort of easy to look at. So hopefully we can attach that somewhere, because it's pretty interesting, I think, to look at.
If all else fails, I can put it I can find a link to it somewhere and add it to the show notes. You can go and have a look at that. Very similar to a hop tasting wheel or a beer tasting wheel, if you've ever seen one of those.
Yeah, I thought it was the most user friendly because I think it's something that we probably would be able to identify more with in like a beer world. And it's that similar type of setup, so it just felt like it was probably the most translatable visual I could find, to be honest. Moving on now to our second beer, which is Ventius 20, which is the coffee Belgian double that I mentioned at the start. I'm curious to get your feedback on it, because I've obviously had it already, so I know what I'm getting into, but I'd be curious to know what your response is on this one.
It looks beautiful. It's very it's clear, bright orange amber. It's got a nice homey head. The smell is so fruity.
Yeah. It does give me it gives me like Belgian vibes, like when I smell it.
So obviously, because it's a double, you're going to get that fruitiness from the yeast. I'm not getting. I think the coffee is masking spiciness.
Yeah.
Or maybe I think I'm interpreting that within the coffee, the spiciness, but it smells gorgeous.
I mean, like I do genuinely feel like in this one for me, the coffee is definitely present.
Yeah.
And I think I almost get like a bit of like chocolatiness in it as well, which is,
I'm getting a touch of cinnamon.
Yeah, I definitely say that as well. Like definitely that slight spice to it. It does smell really nice. It smells like it's going to be a bit sweet when you smell it. For me, it has that sweetness to it.
Almost a bit of vanilla.
I'm not gonna react to it. All I'm gonna tell you is they definitely use Belgian yeast for it. So they definitely do that. And it's brewed using cold brew coffee from the Reading-based Anonymous Coffee Co. I want to know your reactions because there's no point in me giving you mine.
That's so nice.
It is, isn't it?
It's there's definitely I feel like there's some vanilla or something in there. And then there's coffee there, but it's kind of whereas in the aroma, like there's coffee. It's the coffee in the actual taste is kind of supporting everything. And there's like a little bit of that cinnamon, a bit of like vanilla-y, maybe marshmallowy. There's fruitiness. It's fragrant. I like it.
I think where I tasted the coffee, I smelled the coffee less, but tasted the coffee more clearly in the press to zest. I think the coffee, like you said, is sort of blending a lot of flavors together, like kind of holding a lot of flavors together in this. I could smell it more in the aroma, but it doesn't stand out as cleanly as just like clear, undeniable coffee. But I think it has that thing where flavors of coffee can have all those similar notes. Absolutely. So it is serving as like a way to kind of blend it all together. But it's really nice, isn't it? When I first had it, I was like, oh, I've never seen a coffee Belgian double in my life. I was like, that's really interesting, really unique, and I really want to try it. And then I tried it and I was like, it's really good.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. I love it. Oh, I mean, I just love coffee beer in general. So
I do as well. But when I tried this, I was like, I need to get you some, because I had it, and then I was like, I need to get another 2 because you need to try this as well. And I was like, we need to tell people about this one. I think you can kind of still get it at a few places. I think the Hive near me still has it. And when I went looking for some notes online, I think I saw there's a few online shops that maybe still had it. Highly recommend, in my opinion, because it's
this is absolutely
tasty.
Gorgeous.
Both I like the artwork as well. If you're looking at the camera, it's just like a bunch of
I really like the labels on Phantom's beers anyway. Brew York involved, it's going to be interesting.
I love the cartoony element of it. It's really cool. But lots of little coffee cups pouring away on there. It's cool. So I just really quickly, and then we'll get into your section, which is all the beer based stuff. I thought I would sort of take us through the 10 steps of how to brew coffee, or how to make coffee from basically like plant to cup. I was able to find all this, and I think you can post a link to this on ncausa.org.
Okay.
I've literally pulled stuff from the 10 steps from seed to cup, but they also have some other really good coffee resources on there. Like they have, I didn't even know how interesting some of this stuff was until I started looking it up for this episode. And they have stuff like, they've got bits about cold brew on their website. They've got all this other stuff. So I think if you want to brew with coffee and you really want to understand coffee a bit more, like this is a really good resource. So if you put this in, people can kind of check out those bits. And I think there's some really interesting stuff that they had on there. And the International Coffee Organization as well. So those two both had really good stuff on it. Although I found the International Coffee Organization had a bit more technical, whereas NCA USA had more stuff that it was like dumbed down for me. Like I could read it and I was like, yeah, it all makes sense. Basically, step 1 is the actual planting. And so that's I didn't really appreciate this, I don't think, but an unprocessed coffee bean is effectively a seed. And I just didn't really think about that part. So if you were to
malt as well, that's like when you are malting something, you start it growing again, and then you have to stop it before you malt it. So similar.
That's quite interesting. I don't think I've ever really stopped to think about where the less obvious products that we use come
Yeah.
from, like stuff like that. I would never be like, yeah, you use unprocessed coffee to grow a coffee tree, obviously. But yeah, you plant it and it grows a coffee tree. So they generally plant in large beds in shaded nurseries, and then they frequently water the seedlings, keep them shaded from bright sunlight until they're permanently planted. And planting often takes place during wet season, so the soil remains moist while the roots become firmly established. That's quite key. I think largely it says takes approximately 3 to 4 years, depending on some factors, for a newly planted coffee tree to bear fruits. Now the fruits are called coffee cherries. That's something I also didn't know.
Oh, I did know that.
I didn't know that because I've never looked into the process up until like roasting. I think like roasting was the first part that I really sort of like was like, oh, okay, yeah, you roast the coffee and all that. Up until then, I think I knew it was grown on trees, but even then, like looking at the photos of it, it's just not what I pictured. Even I don't know, I think I pictured like bushes or something, I don't know. Yeah, step 2 is harvesting the cherries. So they have to be harvested once ripe. I think there's typically one major harvest per year, but in some countries they have 2 flowerings annually, which are main flowering and a secondary flowering. So places like Colombia have 2, but the majority just have 1. And you can read way further about all this, about the different processes of how they harvest and all that. But I thought I'd pull out sort of a fun fact from that, which is this website states that a good picker averages approximately 100 to 200 pounds of coffee cherries per day. Ooh. So that will produce about 20 to 40 pounds coffee beans. So each day they'll have their whole weighed, so that the picker is paid based on the work they've done, effectively.
That's how they used to do hops.
Oh yeah. Again, like I feel like they do just go hand in hand, like so well together. Obviously, I think there's probably some places that don't treat their pickers ethically. Yes. Like it's worth pointing out that there are countries and places that probably don't. You want to make sure your coffee is being ethically sourced, like the pickers are getting paid.
Check if it's fair trade, etc.
Yeah, you want to do all that. So I'm just taking this like for fact. I'm not factoring in stuff like that, but that is stuff that you probably do want to look at, because I know Girls Who Grind support places that pay like above average for coffee picking, because they want to make sure that they're supporting the right places. So I didn't know, but you can also eat those cherries if you wanted to.
Oh, I
didn't really think about it, because I think you kind of think about it, and there's certain things that are berries that you're like, oh, those are poison, like can't ingest that, it's not good for you. But you can eat the cherries if you wanted to. Supposedly, historically, they used to make wine-like drinks out of them.
Oh.
So I thought that was quite an interesting concept. If somebody were to try that like nowadays, I wonder how that would turn out, or make a coffee inspired barley wine to pay homage to that. But I think making a wine like drink out of those cherries is probably not so realistic if you don't live close by to where they're being harvested. So the likelihood we'll see something like that come back, I don't know, but it would be interesting. So the next step after you harvest them is you need to process the cherries. So you have to do that immediately to minimize the spoilage, which is why I think it'd be quite difficult for somebody to make that wine-like drink out of them if they're not close by, because they'll probably spoil relatively quickly. So there's 2 different processes on how you process them. You can do a dry method. That's used in many countries where water resources are limited. So they take the freshly picked cherries, they spread them out on a huge surface to dry in the sun. They're raked and turned throughout the day and covered at night or during rain to prevent wetness. It could last several weeks, like depending on the weather and various factors, but per batch of coffee.
Yeah.
So what they're ultimately waiting for is the moisture content of the cherries to drop to 11%. So that is the dry method, and then you have
like malt.
And then you have the wet method. No, I think it's really interesting to see the comparisons between them, to be fair.
Malt used to be floor kiln, so it used to be laid out to dry out and stuff.
So this also has a wet method where they remove pulp from the cherry after harvest. So the bean is dried with only parchment skin left on. So it first passes through the pulping machine, where it separates the skin and the pulp from the bean. Then it's separated by weight as it passes through the water channels. So the lighter beans float to the top and the heavy ones sink. And then they pass through a series of rotating drums, which separate by the size of them. And after separation, the beans are transported to water-filled fermentation tanks, where they may remain from anywhere between 12 to 48 hours to remove the layer of mucilage that's attached to the parchment. So basically the way they end up is the beans end up being rough to touch and ready for drying. So no matter what, they kind of have to go through the drying process, because then step 4 is drying the bean. So if you use the wet method, you have to go to drying the bean, which again, you have to try to get the moisture to about 11% for those as well. So yeah, from there you go to the milling the bean process. So it goes through a hulling machine, and there's an option of going through a polishing process. Doesn't have to do that, but it can do that. It's then graded and sorted by size and weight, and they remove the defective beans. Again, I wasn't going to run through like the whole technicalities of that. On this website, it does a really good job of sort of laying it all out for you, so you can go and look at that. But yeah, that's that. And then from there you have the exporting of the beans. So the milled beans at this point are now called green coffee. Quite literally, sometimes it is green. And those green coffee beans are then loaded into shipping containers, or they're bulk shipped somehow to the coffees that the countries that consume the coffee, which is great. It then goes through a tasting process, and that process is called cupping, which I thought sounded really interesting. It made me giggle for some reason. Like they're like, oh, it goes through the cupping process, where the coffee is repeatedly tested for quality and taste. And what I thought was really interesting was, like, a lot of times they have a special room designed to facilitate the process. I think it's something like, it's like quite a plain
like a sensory deprivation type room.
Yeah, like you would do with hops.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting. I didn't really look into what that process was, but I just thought it was interesting. They tend to have special rooms designed to the cupping process. So from there it goes to roasting, which is I think where a lot of people start picking up the coffee process. So yeah, basically it transformed the green coffee. Like I said, sometimes it is quite literally green. That's when it turns into the brown coffee beans. So most roasting machines maintain a temperature of about 550 degrees Fahrenheit, and basically it's kept the beans moving through the entire process so they don't burn. And when they reach an internal temperature of 400, that's when they begin to turn brown, and it goes through the process called pyrolysis, I believe I pronounced that right, which is where it produces the flavor and aroma of the coffee that we know of, like what we know of coffee flavors and aromas and all that. So roasting generally performed in the countries that they've been imported to for freshness, but once the coffee is completed, the beans have to be immediately cooled either by air or water. So that makes me think of like when you're brewing beer as well, and it's like you have to be like cool it down like now. So it's funny now that you've mentioned it, all the different bits that like sort of overlap
comparisons.
So you got the roasting of coffee, and then it goes into step 9, which is the grinding of the coffee. So how coarse or fine that you grind the coffee depends on the brewing method that you're going to use, which I never really stopped to, like, I knew that you could have different like grinds of it that vary, but I didn't really know what that impacted. But it sort of is defined by the method of which you're doing it. And it gets like, you do that so that you could get the most flavor in your cup depending on the method that you were using. So the guidance was that typically the more finer the grind, the more quickly the coffee should be prepared. That was interesting. And then I had another fun fact: espresso machines use 132 pounds per square inch of pressure to extract the coffee. Apparently, it makes sense, but espresso means press out in Italian. I think it literally translates to expressed, but I think that is, I'm fairly confident, but yeah, apparently it means press out. And then you've got step number 10, which is the most fun part of it, which is yay, caffeine, you get to drink it.
Yay.
So yeah, that's a walk through. the coffee process. And then now we're going to get into beer chat with you. You'll lead that section. But first, we're going to have Mad Squirrel's Caracino, which is their caramel macchiato stout. I love caramel marks personally, so I don't care how basic that sounds.
That is my order.
That's normally what my order is. If there's not a good seasonal, like if it's not pumpkin spice,
if it's not pumpkin spice, I'm getting a caramel macchiato.
Yeah, that's my default go-to normally. If I don't get a cold brew, it's normally a caramel mark.
So I'd been in America buying caramel macchiatos, blah blah blah. I assumed that caramel macchiato was just a thing, right?
Yeah.
I came back home, went into a Cafe Nero because at the time we did not have a Starbucks in my hometown. Rude. Went to Cafe
Everyone
Nero
as well. We're talking about like independent. We're like, here's these independent places. Then you're like, and then the Starbucks. We know, guys. We know it's not the best coffee in the world. We get it.
I don't care. Went into his cat and I was like, "Did you do a caramel macchiato?" And they were like, "No, what's that?" Cool, just give me a coffee then.
Like, can I just have a coffee with some caramel in it? No. Yeah, that's my go-to, an iced caramel macchiato. And I like getting pumpkin spice, but like ordering it the same way that you get a caramel like how you have the espresso on the top and the milk on the bottom,
right?
Because what it does is it creates this like really gorgeous like autumn colors, because you've got like the orange, you've got the like white color and the brown, and it all fades together so nice. But then I mix it up together anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I don't know why I order them, because I mix it all together in the end anyways. But yeah, I love a caramel macchiato. This was brewed using Kokebi Coffee's Intenso coffee beans. So Kokebi are located in Hertfordshire. So the origin of the beans was listed. I looked up the beans. It's 100% Arabica. I could never say that.
Arabica.
And
that's how I say it. Someone's going to tell us we said that.
Well, probably, but like in my brain, I just look at it and I'm like, I'm going to call it this now. And I just feel like this is how I refer to it. I think of arrabbiata, which is like that type of sauce. And then I'm like, yeah, that's what it's called now, basically. But yeah, it's like multi-regions of where the origins are from. I'm assuming it's like a blend as opposed to a straight particular bean. But yeah, the bean flavor described is intense dark chocolate, and it should add dark rich chocolatey notes from the coffee. It should complement the caramel undertones from the coffee, making the caramel macchiato appearance of it or taste of it. Now I definitely get in the aroma, I definitely get the caramel.
Yeah, caramel is definitely up front in this more than coffee, but I've had a little drink already.
I expect big things from Mad Squirrels. This particular type of when they do coffee stouts, they usually tend to do it really good.
So it's beautiful. Get in there. Lots of caramel, bit of burnt sugar. Thick.
If you like thick, you'd buy again. It's great.
This has got roastiness in it. I think the other two had coffee but didn't necessarily have roastiness. This has got roastiness in it. There is no problem with that.
I think this has more upfront bitter as well.
Yes. And I think it works beautifully.
Yeah. Because
it's right for this beer.
For me, it's very much so. This is a 9%, but it almost has like a bit more booziness. Like there's almost more booziness to it for me than I think I would normally think of at 9%.
Oh, 9%. I hadn't realized.
Yeah, but it doesn't taste like, I wouldn't say that I'm like, oh, it's super boozy, but it's more boozy in like that warmth than I used to kind of getting on some other 9% beers.
Yeah.
But it works really well with it because I think that warmth almost kind of helps emulate coffee.
Yeah.
And definitely. You do get like the coffee element of that bitter roast of coffee with the caramel notes. And I think it does quite a good job of representing a caramel macchiato.
Yeah, I like it.
It's done it proud. I like it as well. Super thick. Super good.
These
tasty.
Our beer selection tonight has been on it, like fire.
Absolute fire. It's literally just like, ooh. I wanted to hit it with a fire emoji and a chef's kiss.
Yes.
If we were talking in emojis, but
yes, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Brewing with coffee. Brewing beer with coffee.
Tips, tricks, whatever else.
Fun fact number 1.
So you've got fun facts for me.
Fun facts. I've got a fun fact for you. We're gonna go straight out the gate with a fun fact.
Yes, love it.
So when industrialization hit and they were finding ways to better malt grains for brewing and to be able to do it on a larger scale, a gentleman called Daniel Wheeler invented the drum roaster in 1818. This allowed for the malts not to be close to the heat source. It meant that the grains were no longer smoky. You could get a more consistent malting on your grains, and it also allowed for paler grains to be made and much darker grains to be made, producing new beer styles. This was revolutionary in the beer industry at the time. Has created some of the classic styles that we understand today because of this device, the drum roaster. He got his idea for that from looking at coffee roasters. So just there's a bit of synergy with
synergy. I do love the word synergy as well. It's like big business synergy. Love it.
So that I thought I'd hit you with that one. Thank you, Daniel Wheeler.
Thank you, Daniel Wheeler. I love this lasting caramel taste that's in my mouth. It's like coating my mouth and it's just staying there, and I love it. Make me happy.
So if you want to brew a beer with coffee, there are 2 ways that you can get coffee flavors into your beer. One is just from the use of malts, and the other is from adding actual coffee. So malts, darker roasted malts, are going to produce coffee-like flavors anyway in your beer. And thanks to the drum roaster, we can make much darker roasted malts. Those malts added in various different percentages, not huge amounts because they will also add bitterness, but those kind of malts will add coffee flavors to your beer anyway. So there will be beers that you find that don't have coffee added but have coffee flavors, generally in your traditional stouts and things like that. The other way of adding coffee is by adding actual coffee, and there are various, much like these beers that we've had today have added actual coffee as an adjunct. But there are various different ways that you can add that coffee to the beer. So it can be added basically at any stage throughout the brewing process. It really depends on what you want from the coffee, and there are advantages to each different addition and how you want to do it. You can steep either coffee grounds or coffee beans in with the malt when you're doing the mashing process. That is considered to be a bit like you're brewing the coffee, because obviously it's in hot water and it's steeping for a long time, so you can do it that way. If you do that, you do need to be careful of they said it can kind of end up being watered down because it's in the process longer, so other things can knock it out. You can add coffee into the boil much like you do hops. However, if you're adding that in, you need to think about adding bitterness to the beer, because obviously when your coffee has bitterness in it, if you add that in, you are going to end up adding bitterness to your beer. So you have to think about balancing that out. And brewers would suggest that, much like adding hops, if you want to lessen that bitterness, you want to add your coffee into the boil towards the end, maybe like the last 10 minutes or so. You can then add coffee during primary fermentation, after fermentation has happened, just before bottling. Beers can be conditioned on coffee beans. So, much like you would think that they, have some fruit and they stick beer on top of it, you can do that with coffee beans. You can do that with coffee grounds. If you do it at primary fermentation, so like right away when the yeast is first working, some of that flavor can potentially get dulled down because there's other processes happening. You can also add cold brewed coffee to beer during fermentation, after fermentation, just before bottling. This is the way that I've added coffee to beer when I've homebrewed, and it works really well. You can also brew coffee and let it go cold and then add that to your beer, but I like to cold brew it. So I would go as if I'm going to make coffee, and like I have a French press. I would use that, do it as if I was going to brew coffee regularly, like stick my grounds in. Then I add cold water and leave it in my fridge for a couple of days to a week to really like settle. Then you want to press it as if you would normally, and then I add it to the beer just before I bottle it, because then you can taste it, you can tweak how much, you can add a little bit and just keep adding a little bit more until there's enough coffee in there for what you want. You do have to think about balancing your flavors. Overall, bitterness levels are going to be raised by adding coffee. So you might want to consider lessening bitterness either from malt additions or particularly from hop additions. So I was reading an article from Brew Your Own, and they suggested that you need to reduce your IBUs overall by 5 to 8 IBUs if you're going to add coffee, just to make sure that your levels are right. I'd see you looking at the Mad Squirrel can, and I saw that as well. It says it's only
30
got 30
IBUs.
It's only got 30 IBUs, which isn't that much, really. Well, kind of the middle ground.
I feel like what I learned, like when we spoke to JD at Wild Weather as well, is like something might read particularly high, particularly low, but if you've got a well-balanced beer, it may not come through in the like, you might see a number and it might not be landing in that particular way. But I do wonder if that's why you mentioned about the balancing out that bitterness, and I do wonder if that's why you get a lot of these coffee stouts, especially not so much of the lighter beers but more the stouts, where you get a lot more like adjuncts of like sweet, like you tend to have like there's a caramel one, or you have something that's like chocolate and coffee. Is that an attempt to balance out the bitterness?
I would say so, because this is it's 30 IBUs, but you'll need that bitterness to balance out the sweetness of the caramel and the sweetness of the malt anyway. So you do need that. You probably need that amount of IBUs anyway. But that's just something to consider if you are thinking about brewing with coffee, or what brewers consider when they are considering brewing with coffee. You also need to think about the type of coffee that you're going to use. So you'll get strong coffee flavors from espresso and French roast, but interestingly, darker roasts have more oils in them. So if you add them, the higher oil content will give you a creamier, fuller mouthfeel, but it's going to do terrible things to your head retention. So if you want like a lovely, nice, creamy head on your beer, if you're adding a lot of the higher roast coffee, that's going to completely destroy it, because it's adding more oil to your beer.
Is there a way to counteract that, or is it
you'd have to just add less of the coffee? So you might want to bolster it with like coffee flavors in your malts, rather than using lots of high roast coffee in it because of those oils. Lighter roast coffees, however, like Sumatra or Guatemala Antigua coffee, can bring more subtle qualities. So it depends on what you want your final beer to taste like. Do you want just a subtle bit of coffee? Do you want like espresso in your face? Like, think about that.
I want espresso in my face.
I know you do.
All in my face. I do think like the method that I've seen the most is the cold brew.
Yeah.
Because I know that tends to be like what a lot of people go to. I think
that's the easiest way, and you've got more control over it.
I think it's the control over it aspect of it that makes that the most appealing, because I don't know if they necessarily use this in the S43 one. I don't remember if it was cold brew or something else, but I do remember there being like how do they make it more coffee, and experimenting around with the coffee element of it, so that you got enough that it was noticeable, but not too much that it was like overriding the pumpkin spice, for example.
Exactly. So it's about having that control, or whether you just want to see what happens. Advice also from Brew Your Own is don't use instant coffee or canned coffee. I don't think we have canned coffee over here, but that's an American thing, isn't it? Canned coffee.
No, I think.
Have you seen it over here?
When they say canned coffee, do they not mean instant coffee?
No.
What is?
They said instant coffee and canned coffee.
What would canned coffee be?
I don't know.
Would that be like? Would that be like when you get like Starbucks, like the pre-packaged drinks, like you have the Starbucks double shot that's in a can, and
I
it's
don't know,
like
maybe
double espresso or something.
Maybe. But that is not the freshest coffee that you can get. Even though like instant coffee is freeze dried, it's still not the freshest. And some brewers have found that you can end up with off flavors from instant coffee and whatever this canned coffee is. So make sure you're using like actual coffee grounds, coffee beans, get the freshest and best that you can. There are also extracts available. There is one called mocha liqueur extract, which is actually used to make homemade Kahlua. So that can be added. You can also get coffee oils from health food shops. However, again, oils, that's going to affect your head retention, so think about that. And then, fun fact, it's not commercially available, but Starbucks has created an extract, a coffee extract that works with their ice cream based and frappuccino drinks. And it's based on a Central American coffee blend. Now, that was used by Red Hook Breweries, who Starbucks is from Seattle, Red Hook is from Seattle, so they got together and they created a beer using it called Double Black Stout. Apparently it was very popular, but it is no longer made, which is sad.
No, that's interesting. The fact that Starbucks have, but then I also kind of feel like, are they lying to people about coffee frappuccinos? Like, are they? Because like you get, I don't get frappuccinos because I'm just like,
it's still coffee though. It's just extra, so it's like condensed.
Because you can ask for your frappuccino with coffee in it, but I'm like, how much you actually get in coffee wise? But are they lying? Are they just like, we just?
So it is coffee. It's just an extract, and they've like taken all the water out, so it's like intense coffee.
What's to say is the caffeine element still there when like
if you're buying a frappuccino, you can't be expecting the same amount of caffeine.
Well, I don't know, I'm not buying a frappuccino because I'm just like, I need like a junkie. I'm like,
exactly,
I need that caffeine directly in me. Exactly. I don't add extra water that's diluting down the caffeine. Don't be silly.
Anyway, coffee can obviously also be used in pale beers. We're showing you that today with our goes. Sometimes to do that, because obviously if you add coffee to a pale beer, you might add colour. Sometimes brewers will use the green coffee beans that you were talking about to add coffee flavours, but without adding the colour in a paler beer. And then my final thing, I thought this was cute, and I thought you'd like this.
Okay.
There is a place in Prague, in the Czech Republic, called Restaurants Pivovarsky Dom, which is a restaurant, but they also brew on site, and they make a pale coffee lager called Kavove Pivo.
That's a fun name.
And when they serve it to you, they float an espresso bean in the beer foam.
Oh, that is cute.
Just like
because it's like they're making like little foam art. That's what they should do. They should make foam art out of it.
I now need to go to the Czech Republic.
Well, it's funny you say that because looking at long weekends away this year, and one of the places that I had listed was Prague. It was one of the places I wanted to go to, and now I'm
find this restaurant.
I like the name of it. It's a fun name.
Yeah.
The drink, not the I mean the name of the place is alright as well, but the name of the drink was super fun. So yeah, I like that. That's good. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
That's brewing beer with coffee.
So many like just different way. Like I would love to have a beer that just like I don't think I've yet had a beer that just tasted like an actual just plain black coffee. Because there's always like these adjuncts in it that I think make it like sweet. Because like you said, it's the bitterness element of it that they're probably trying to balance out. And I feel like all the coffee I've had is normally like roasty coffee and something else, or coffee and something sweet. Like I've never just like had one that's like, here is a cup of coffee and a beer. Like I would just love to just be like, what would happen if you just let it just be bitter? Like I want to know, how bad would it be if it was just like super bitter? But yeah, that was a really nice one. I really liked that one.
That was nice.
I'm really excited to try this this last one though. which is the Malt Garden. I'm your barista. They do range. They're releasing like another one that I don't know. I tagged you in it. It's like a freeze dried, not of this range, but there's like freeze dried peanut butter, and there's like coffee in it as well, I think, and it just sounds like amazing. And I'm like, I just want, like, Malt Garden put out these really just like interesting beers that it makes me want to go visit Poland, because it's just amazing. So the I'm Your Barista, they do a range of them. I've got the Ethiopian Chelchele Gadeb. I don't know if I've pronounced that right. I probably butchered that. You've got a different one, don't you?
I've got a different one. I've got the Columbia DSB Pink Bourbon one.
Ooh.
Yes.
Nice. So gonna crack it open, give it a go, and I'll give you the last final sort of stories on that. Yeah, so you've got yours is about, which one did you say yours is a whiskey?
Columbia DSB Pink Bourbon. Is the bourbon pink, or what's DSB and is that pink? I don't know what that means.
I want to Google it.
We've
got the magic of Google. DSB.
I don't know what it means. This is straight up bourbon.
Pink.
It's just bourbon.
Okay. DSB.
Yeah.
Diego Samuel Bermudez Pink Bourbon Coffee. So yours was also roasted by Habe Specialty Coffee. I don't know if I've pronounced that right. It's a Polish coffee company that they worked with.
My bottle,
Mine is Habe as well. So mine is the Coffee Imperial Stout with the Ethiopian Chelchele Gadeb. Again, apologies if I butchered that, but that's just how I think it's pronounced. I've not a fucking clue. It's also roasted by Habe. Again, fucking sorry, Habe, if that's not how you say your name. Give me the phonetic spelling and I'll correct it in a future episode and apologize. But they're based in Warsaw, I believe it is, in Poland.
Okay.
And so mine smells like chocolate. Like, it smells like dark chocolate. Like, I've got a feeling this is going to be quite, I haven't sipped mine yet, I've got a feeling it's going to be quite bitter. Like, it smells rich chocolate, so I've got a feeling it's going to be on the bitter end. I don't think it actually says like IBUs or anything on it.
No.
And it's all in Polish, and I can't fucking read Polish. So it could say IBUs. I don't know, but Malt Garden makes that would be the dream for me, is to like go to Malt Garden and visit their location in Poland, because like I think their beers are so creative and it's really cool. So
mine just tastes like bourbon. There is bitter coffee in the back, but it's pretty much just bourbon and roastiness.
Not as bitter as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like immediate like bitterness. The bitter's towards the back end. It's a lot smoother than I thought it would be based on the smell. Because like I said, because it had that like bittersweet, rich chocolate, I think I was expecting it to be a bit more harsh than it is. It's quite smooth, bitterness towards the back end, and it sort of lingers a bit afterwards. But
as I'm sipping this more, the bourbon is going off and I'm getting more dark roast coffee.
Do you think it's just because your mouth is now used to the bourbon?
Yeah.
You get any warmth off of that?
Yeah, there's definite warmth. Although it's not as, like, often when I have a bourbon beer, it's got a bit of kind of umami, marmite soy sauce about it. And this hasn't got that. It's a bit smoother.
This has a bit of like fruity notes. Like, I would say that it would be like when you have that coffee that has the fruity notes to it.
Yeah, nice.
Because it's not it's not an immediate fruitiness. It's only kind of when I've sort of swished it around my mouth a bit and then gone like, oh, what am I actually really getting from this? And it's not the first thing. The first thing you get is just kind of like a bit of chocolate. And then it goes a smoothness, bit like creaminess to it. And then it's like right after that is kind of a bit more subtle. But when you're looking to pick it out, that's when you get sort of the maybe a bit red fruit type fruit in there. And then it goes to bitterness.
This one's definitely just black coffee.
To be fair, I think that is sort of what this is. It's a black coffee, but the roast of this is probably exactly what I was just saying a minute ago when I said I've not yet had a
beer that tastes
coffee
like
beer that
actual
just
black
tastes
coffee.
like that was really emulating just a black coffee. I think actually
your wish was Malt Garden's command.
Yeah, I think this is I don't think it's being unfair. It doesn't have as much maybe like roasty element to it, but then I don't think all coffee has that strong roasty element to it. So it's maybe not in your brain what you think of when you think coffee, but this does have that like mellow coffee, like a smoother coffee.
Yeah,
it's quite good. I'm impressed. What is the ABV on? 11% ABV. It does not. Mine does not taste like 11% ABV.
No.
Like I said, I'm pretty sure COVID hasn't fucked up my taste buds, but maybe it has, and that's why it doesn't taste like 11%. I don't know, but yeah, it's going down pretty easy. So if I was drinking this like session, like I feel like I could session this, and that would end really badly. But I'd be keen to try more of the I'm Your Barista, and if I can find that freeze-dried peanut butter one, and it doesn't cost me a kidney. Because of the import charges, because yay Brexit and all that, like I will happily buy it because I love peanut butter, and freeze-dried peanut butter sounds amazing, so it'd be interesting to see that. So love a bit of Malt Garden. But you mentioned sort of on the brewing with coffee, like using coffee, ground coffee or something, so that's led me to remember that what you can do with sort of the spent coffee grounds. Like once you've brewed stuff that you can also do, you can use it for like beauty elements. I think it's like you can sort of make face masks and stuff like that out
exfoliator.
It exfoliates like that type of stuff. But then also, and I've done this myself, you can use it in the garden. The only thing you have to be careful of is if you're like me and you have a dog, it's not caffeine is not great for dogs, so like you don't really want them to have coffee. But I think it's something like especially fruit trees, if I remember correctly, the coffee grinds are really good to use there. So if you've got an espresso machine and you're like, what do I do? Do I just bin my coffee like do the coffee grounds just go in the bin? What do I do? Want to be sustainable. If you or someone you know likes gardening, just reuse them for your plants, because it makes certain plants particularly happy. So
I've just got images of Phelan running round and round
like but coffee grinds in your gardening. I've done it, highly recommend.
I have heard that.
So I think that's kind of taken us to the end, but I do have some final stories, if you will, because I don't really know how else to describe them other than stories. So the first one coming at you I got from Mental Floss's website, and they referenced ilovecoffee.jp website, and basically what they've done is they posted an infographic on the effects of beer and coffee on your brain. As we said at the beginning, it is like power couple, and you'll see why in a minute, because I don't have the photo to show you. I'm sure you could try to find the infographic or whatever, but I've summarized it for you, and this is how they truly work. This is how you know they truly work in harmony, and I feel like I can relate to both of these things. So your brain on beer, some of this I've pulled directly, so yes, I know it's plagiarism, but it was easier to do that than to reword it. But when you drink, the part of your brain that gets activated is the cerebral cortex. So that is the part that controls the conscious thought, language, and interaction. So it will cause you, so when you have beer, it will cause you to feel less focused, but it also removes all the distractions that normally occupy your brain. So when you hit about a 0.07 blood alcohol level, which is roughly about 2 drinks worth, depending on what it is you're drinking, you become more creative. So the good part of your brain on beer is that it makes you less worried about the world around you, which can also sometimes not be a great thing. That can also be a downfall. But you're less worried about the world around you, which frees up your brain to make deeper connections and come up with great ideas. And that's why I think I might be a genius sometimes, is maybe it's the beer, and then that's when I have my £1 million ideas. I do have my £1 million ideas a lot of the time when I'm drinking. And not too many drinks, just the right amount of drinks. Because the bad is if you drink a couple of beers onward, it actually makes you less focused and it decreases your memory. But yeah, beer, in summary, is really good if you're searching for an initial idea for something. So if you have a project and you're just like, I need an idea for what to do for this project, beer is the one that you want to turn to. Your brain on coffee. So the feeling of drowsiness comes when your adenosine, I think that's how you say adenosine, binds with the brain's receptor. When you drink coffee, the caffeine binds with the receptor instead, and that gives you more energy. Okay. So the positive is that caffeine kicks in after 5 minutes, after only 5 minutes, surprisingly, and that gives you more energy and a stronger ability to focus. The bad is that you can build up a tolerance to it, and then that means that you, like any drug, you need more of it to get the same stimulation. So I know personally, like I have a coffee dependency, a caffeine dependency. Like if I don't have a coffee by a certain time of the day, I'm like, oh, I start to get a headache because I'm like, I actually need it. And maybe it's just a placebo effect of, I don't know, but I have heard that is something that can happen if you're used to drinking a certain amount of coffee and then you don't have it. So yeah, no bueno to have a caffeine addiction, but yeah, I don't have to be without it, so it's fine. But basically, in summary, with coffee on your brain, it's good if you already have the idea, but you need to focus on the actual doing, which is how they sort of work in harmony. So effectively, beer is how you would come up with a good idea, and coffee is how you would execute the idea. So the article does highlight that sort of everything in moderation. So you don't really want to drink too much of either. And they say you don't want to mix them. But if you do that, you'll lose the effects of both. However, I think that's more like if you're having individuals and it's topping up levels of both, just becomes unproductive more than anything else. But I do wonder, like, what happens when you combine them and you make a beer that will help you hit that 0.07 blood alcohol percent, like our if we drink 11% on your baristas and it's got coffee in it and beer, will we be super productive? We'll find out after this episode if we're super geniuses. So the jury's still out on that. But I thought that was a really interesting infographic because it really showed how they worked like so well in harmony and they taste so well together. So that was my first news article.
Nice.
Second news story, again, loosely news story. So a BBC article from 2019 highlights that Clutch Coffee in San Francisco was offering a $75 or 55 pound 26 pence cup of coffee, made from Alida Geisha Natural. I think that's what it's called, which is a bean grown in Panama. So those beans were selling for 803 or 591 pounds and 68 pence, $803 per pound, and they held the record in 2019 as the most expensive coffee in the world at the time, which brings up what the most expensive coffee is sort of known as in the world. So up until much more recent times, which I'll sort of touch on at the end, the most expensive coffee on the market was the Kopi Luwak, and it cost up to $600. I'm not sure if it's just that Alida Geisha like sort of dropped and or isn't really being sold anymore, and that's how the Kopi Luwak sort of overtook it, where one was 803 but that one's only 600, or 441 pounds and 88 pence, because I know you like your conversion, so I did convert it. So it's produced in Indonesia and it's named after an animal called the luwak, or it's also known as the Asian palm civet. It's made this coffee is made when the luwak eats the coffee cherries, and then they go through a natural fermentation process as it passes through their digestive tract and produces the coffee beans out the other end, if you know what I'm saying. So to be more specific, the digestive enzymes change the structure of the proteins in the beans so that it removes some of the acidity, which results in a smoother cup of coffee. The beans are then roasted and produce a highly distinctive flavor and smooth finish, according to this website that I quoted. And a cup of that coffee can sell for as much as $80 or £60, according to a National Geographic website. So looking at the Luwak, it looks, again, I don't know if I'm like pronouncing that super incorrect, but that's what I imagine it's called. It looks like a big sort of, it's interesting. It looked like a mink, like a mink / ferret type animal. Certain photos have it kind of looking a bit more like a rat mouse in the face and the tail. But
I wondered if you were going to talk about that one when you started talking about expensive coffees.
Yeah,
that's the one that I know of as being the very expensive coffee.
Yeah, so it looks like this mink ferret thing, and it has like usually has like raccoon like markings. But it would be amiss if I didn't point out there's controversy surrounding this coffee. Because it's led to a bunch of plantations being set up for like where they'd cage the civets, because obviously it's making money. So they used to be considered as pets when it were not pets, pests. Right. So when they had this pest problem and they realized actually it's like they're producing like this really high-end, like really good coffee, it's like, oh, this is good because now we won't have people trying to kill them off because it's really good. But then that led to them being caged. So they found like there were 16 of these plantations in Bali, for example. So they found that the setups for a large portion of these were failing the basic animal welfare requirements. So they found things like they were being forced to stand on this net, like meshed, like the bottom of their cages were meshed, and then that wasn't really good for them. And they were in very small cages. They were described more as like bunny hutches than they were cages, and just really, really not great for the animals. And there's an inability to tell at present if the coffee that you're buying, if you're splashing out the cash to buy this coffee, there's an inability at the moment to tell if you're buying from a caged place or free range civets. Like there's no certification scheme that exists at the moment to ensure that any coffee that's labeled as wild is actually from wild civets, or if they're from caged. And it just doesn't seem like there's any push or pressure to kind of change that and make legislation around that. So the advice far and wide that I've come across is to avoid buying it, full stop, because you just don't know. Like they could label something as like, yeah, it's wild, but is it? We don't know. However, this is, I wonder if you know this one then. Looking at another website that has stats from 2021. Again, I couldn't find a source that 100% like validated it without a shadow of a doubt. So maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but this is what I found. It shows that the current most expensive coffee is called Black Ivory. It's from Thailand, and it costs $1,500 or £1,104.80 per pound. And it's made using a similar process as the Kopi Luwak, but they use elephants instead.
Oh.
So the problem is, though, with this is that most of the beans get chewed up or broken down along the way. So it results in much smaller batches. So they are much more difficult to get hands on. Like it's much more scarce than some of the other expensive coffees are. But unlike the issues with the Kopi Luwak, the coffee apparently, now feel free to DM me if you know to the contrary, but apparently it's only sold through the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation, which is an elephant refuge, and it helps to ensure the production is completely ethical. So, I mean, how they can prove that, I don't know. I'm not positive. I don't know enough about that. I'm not an expert on that. But that's just what I found, is that it's an elephant refuge, and they are doing their best to ensure that everything is ethical in this area. So they just don't seem to even have an attempt at that with the Kopi Luwak coffee. So
because people are willing to buy it, that's why.
I think when you just put like, oh, it's the most expensive coffee, it's the best. It's coffee, I think, can be known, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like coffee can be known as a more luxury item. I think even sort of dating back, now I could be misremembering this, but I think even dating back, like that is something that was more of a richer person beverage. Like it wasn't just anyone just had coffee. So I imagine that there is some and I've noticed it, and maybe I've been looking at things that aren't there, but I've noticed that it does have like high-end coffee. That's a luxury item. That's not just for anybody. So I think some people almost want to buy them because like it's the most expensive and it shows that you have the money to go and buy them. And you don't think about like, oh, actually what had to go behind the scenes to make that coffee. So always look at where you're getting your coffee source from, because just like animals, people can be overworked, underpaid, everything else. So always try to be as ethical as possible is what we promote. So
circling back to the elephants,
yeah,
if that was your job to collect the beans and they'd chewed them up and you couldn't get a good yield that day, you wouldn't be happy, would you?
Well, it's really interesting because I looked at a visual.
Yeah.
Actually, I will share this. Let me do a screen share. I looked at the visual of the coffee beans from the Kopi Luwak.
Yeah.
Let me just share my screen quick. Can you see this?
So they're quite easy to...
It looks like a nutty... It sounds really gross, but it looks like a nutty chocolate bar. Like a nutrageous bar. Something like that.
For those not watching
it's like a clump of like whitish coffee beans. It doesn't look like poop. It looks like coffee beans mushed together with chocolate or something like that. I know
like
that
elephant poop is gross, like
but
poop.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to Google like what that's going to look like, because I feel like that's just going to be awful to look at. But yeah, I agree. That's probably the worst job you could have. But for anyone that's interested, that's what a Kopi Luwak. If you're watching the video, I've just pulled up a picture and shared screen of what the Luwak looks like, the civet, and those are, of course, in the bowl there. Those are coffee cherries, which look like
cherries.
I don't even think they look like berries that you find on a bush. So it's really cute, and it makes me really sad to think that they're just being held in really shit conditions because rich people want to buy the coffee to say they have the most expensive coffee in the world. So I think I saw something like you can only buy the coffee in Dubai or something at one coffee chain in Dubai, but I think I've seen it online as well. You can buy it to make it at home. It's expensive. So but yeah, that was our adventures through coffee. Anything else to add?
No. Coffee and beer is good.
Coffee and beer is good. They are the best tag team one could possibly ask for. We run on coffee and beer. I think that's probably summarizes quite a lot. Yeah. So Jo, if anybody wants to talk to you more about the brewing with coffee process, where can people find you?
If you want to come talk to me about brewing beer with coffee, even you've got to get it right, because if you just put in brewing with coffee,
I was going to say, could you do brewing coffee with beer? That could be interesting.
Brewing beer with coffee. You can find me. I am A Woman's Brew on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I tend to hang out on Instagram, and the podcast has kind of taken over that account, but that's fine. You can just come talk to me there. Or you can come to my beer school. I have just done a brew day today, and I've just done loads of recording. So hopefully I'm going to have some content up soon about how to homebrew. So you can come find my beer school and learn about home brewing there. That is Love Beer Learning. And we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I generally hang out on Instagram. You can also find me on TikTok and Pinterest. We have a website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk. You'll find all of the information, all of the places you can find us there. You can also email us, lovebeerlearning@gmail.com, and we will take emails for the podcast there if there is something you would like to hear about on the podcast, or a brewery you'd like us to speak to.
We have, and we do.
Yes. Yep. We've had emails, and we do listen to what you want, and we've done episodes. We need to do a Scottish episode, otherwise Tamsin's going to get really upset with us.
We'll do it. Ticked off. Don't worry.
Got to do a Scottish beer episode. We do take requests on what you would like to hear, and if you would like to continue to have this podcast for free, for everyone, and so that we can get beer education and beer chit chat to everybody, we would love for you to come and support us on Patreon. For £2 a month, you can support the podcast, and
for the price of a coffee.
That's for a price of a coffee.
For less than the price of a coffee.
Beers, you can support us monthly. Help us to continue to spread the good word about beer. That is patreon.com/lovebeerlearning. come and join us there as well. Tori, if they would like to talk to you about, expensive coffee, where can they find you?
Yeah, if you just want to come talk to me about coffee, full stop. I love coffee. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism. So yeah, anything else I'm on is linked from there. So come find me, come chat to me about coffee and animal rights if you want, or whatever takes your fancy after this episode. So I'm ready to go enjoy the rest of this I'm Your Barista, because this is the exact coffee beer that I've been looking for. A thank you, Malt Garden.
Look at that.
On that note,
cheers.